World of RPGs, Episode 14, Hong Kong. Welcome to the World of RPGs, a podcast in which we travel around the globe and learn about the local role-playing game scenes. I'm your host, Mobots, and in Episode 14 we are going to Hong Kong. And this one was recorded in a hotel because I'm kind of doing it on the fly. This is an unplanned episode, and we'll start with a disclaimer. Hong Kong is not a separate country, but part of the People's Republic of China. And why is this a separate episode? First of all, there are a couple of political and cultural differences that make Hong Kong distinct. It was a British colony from 1843 to 1997, and I actually watched the ceremony live while on vacation in England back then. And thus it took a different trajectory from mainland China. Also, the majority language in Hong Kong is Cantonese and not Mandarin. Finally, for practical reasons, I only got in touch with players and GMs from Hong Kong after I had already finished episode 11, so that's why we're doing a separate episode now. The city of Hong Kong has a population of about 7 million people, and the main language spoken there is Cantonese, which uses the same characters as Mandarin, but is not mutually intelligible. Cantonese is also spoken in the neighboring metropolises like Guangzhou, which in colonial times was called Canton, hence the name of the language Cantonese. And it's also a common language among the Chinese diaspora, so there are about 70 million people speaking it. In this episode, we return to our tradition of an interview with the creator of the actual play recording you heard at the end of last episode.
So hello everyone, my name is Gordon. I am a dungeon master and also a YouTuber. I have a YouTube channel called NG Factory. So there I actually have some Dungeons & Dragons actual play performance on the YouTube channel with my friends. Also a founder of the D&D community, Hong Kong, which called Dungeon No Dragons. So where I be a dungeon master there and introduce the D&D and other TRPG system to all the players in Hong Kong. And moreover, sometimes we have players from Taiwan, Malaysia, and Hong Kong people all over the places. So currently I am running like a 3 to 4 campaign to my close friends. So when I start playing D&D is, I think it's back 2019. So where I was an exchange student to the United States. I was near New York. So I heard of Dungeons & Dragons, and there's like a community which is very nice. Play games and board games, and that's where I meet my first play group, and we were playing The Curse of Straw. And my first one shot is The Dead House. And that's I create a half-orc barbarian, which barely understand the common language. My level of English back there is not that good, so that seems fair to me play as a barbarian half-orc. And when I'm back in Hong Kong, TTRPG is not very common. So I decided to be my own dungeon master. So I buy all the books and just introduce to my close friends, and we think we have the obligation to share to the board community. So that's how the D&D community, Dungeon No Dragons, was found. And now the whole Discord server has over like 800 members, and we are having regularly 2 to 3 games per day, 10 games per week from all the dungeon master and players to enjoy together.
Yeah, 800 is very impressive. So it's also a meeting between dungeon masters, if I understand that correct?
Yes. Also from last year, around November, I think besides of having game session with the players, I think it's important that we improve our gameplay experience. So what I did is to invite some experienced player, experienced dungeon master locally or also from Taiwan to come to the Discord server to have a speech or a sharing session with all the members there. So what we call is a dungeon master gathering.
And what topics do they have in these speeches?
Well, what we were talking about is some advice for the world building, how to create the city, the culture, all the detailed things, just sharing between dungeon masters. So the other episode was about what are the difference of the gameplay experience from Hong Kong and Taiwan. So in that case, we share many similarity, but the one thing which really difference is the game time. So like Hong Kong people is known for their busy life. So we can't really bear a session longer than 3 hours, or we don't have the time to enjoy a game session more than 3 hours. But it's kind of unique in Taiwan. I see their game, like when they have shops, are only special for TTRPG. They can run a game session for like 7 to 8 hours with new players. That was very impressive. And how they have the patience to do that, and also the time. That's mainly the difference. So also I invite some local game store to have sharing with the preparation when we have a face-to-face D&D session, because mostly in Discord we play online. So now I'm also planning for the next Dungeon Master Gathering, where I will invite some Hong Kong artists and actors and directors, specialists in drama and theater studies to explain the role-playing improvise in the terms of TTRPG. So become more and more academic in that sense.
My question about the world building meetings is, do you use like the standard European fantasy worlds like Forgotten Realms, or do you have your own Asian kind of settings?
Well, we kind of share our own experience, have both sides. Some Dungeon Master enjoy building his world based on the official campaign, like the Forgotten Realm, the Sword Coast. And I think more Dungeon Master here do enjoy the Eastern type of style, like Chinese style with wuxia, like Chinese warrior, but with like a delicate. And Japanese is also very popular in that sense. So in the Discord server experience, this kind of Eastern campaign is more popular than the Western, because maybe they feel more connected to the world, and because when we go up, we read this kind of classics, so we have better understanding.
Do you have any published material then for such settings, or do you create it on your own?
We do create on our own, because most of the like third-party contents are written in English. So most of us kind of take it as reference, but we do not translate them all. And we kind of based on what we know and create our own. But so far in Hong Kong, I haven't seen any like Chinese D&D settings book to be published. I guess that would be very rare. It's not that trending to publish such a D&D only setting book.
And you also said you have an actual play channel. Can you maybe say a bit about that? Like, what game do you play, and in which language is it?
I am currently running 3 campaigns on my YouTube channel, NG Factory. So the first campaign is called The Eversun. It is like a Nordic style, which is more like Western. It's winter apocalypse, but in medieval style. My inspiration mostly is from the game The Banner Saga, which features a world apocalypse, and the group of refugees, which are the players, try to survive in this world. So it's also merged with Sword and Magic D&D classics. This is the first actual play campaign. It's already been 1 year, and now we are having the 17 episodes. So the second campaign the setting is old Hong Kong. The time period is 1888, 1888. So it's the time between the late Chinese Qing dynasty and the British colonists. And we've merged with the idea of Chinese fantasy monsters and ghost stories, mixing into a very unique experience, and also features many Hong Kong famous locations like the Kowloon City. The stage mainly plays on Kowloon City, where it is known as the Lawless Land, where there's no police, no government, such things. All is the bad things, crimes will happen. That would be the stage. So the final campaign, it's called the Prune Songs. It's a Egyptian style campaign where we feature the setting in Cairo, where this Egypt I would describe as a dream world. So there would be two type of players. One is the residents of this dream world, and one is the traveler of the dream world. They are from the different reality, and they're just dreaming, and suddenly they appear in this web. So this is a story kind of like that. So free campaign.
Okay, these sound really cool, but in what language are they? Could I understand them?
Yes, they are all in Cantonese only.
I know about the difference because I visited Beijing once in mainland China with a Cantonese speaking friend, and she could not understand the people. She grew up in Germany, but is from Guangzhou, the family, so she could only speak German and Cantonese. And we went to Beijing and no chance. That's how I know that Cantonese and Mandarin are not the same.
Yes, it's not the same language, but we use the same characters.
And all these three campaigns are played with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rules?
Yes, they are all in 5th edition rules, yes. I think the actual play, how many audience are in average around 100 to 200 views. But I think it's already a very acceptable level because I do this mainly for the record. And although there are quite a number of players really enjoy it and want to try D&D because of the actual play, I'll do more. There is a goal for me to film the actual play like Critical Role in the future. That's what I'm planning to do in Cantonese. So it should be a very difficult journey.
So in Hong Kong, how do you get games? Do you have specific shops or do you get them from abroad?
We do have some local game stores specializing in TTRPG. I think there are around 5 to 6 stores. Maybe not just only for TTRPG, like a Slash board game store, but there are 5 to 6 shops there. I don't know. People enjoy TTRPG in Hong Kong. People usually already immigrate to other countries. This is something I feel like that. Like a portion of the TTRPG players already immigrant to other countries.
Because they played a game in another language and then they went abroad because of it?
No, I think because people who enjoy this more understanding in the Western culture, or maybe they prefer in Western culture. That's why the main players are already aboard.
And how about conventions or meetups? Do you have any in Hong Kong?
I don't think there is a major convention meetup places or festival or like an event so far. But I'm planning in the future somehow I can do that to group up all the TTRPG players. But I heard one of the game store managed to pull out 40 to 50 players game night. So like 5 to 6 tables into one shot campaign. That's what I heard in the last year. It's quite successful as well.
In the game shops you have, are the games in English or with Chinese characters?
They're all in English. So far, there is no official translated textbook like D&D official campaign set book like the player handbooks, Dungeon Master Guide. There's no Chinese version. What we do is there's a group of players before me, like 5 to 6 or 7 years ago. They managed to translate the main content and publish online. So there is a website called D&D 5e Tools in Chinese. So I know most of the players learn their first, like how to play and other system from that website.
The language differences also mean that it's important to have an introduction to role-playing games in Cantonese, and I spoke to the creator of such intro videos.
My name is Corinne. and I'm a content creator who made D&D animation on the YouTube channel Dungeon Master Can Cook or Dungeon Master Chef. So I make the animation, and I got into RPG in 2015 when a friend of mine introduced me to 5th edition, and then we went party like a gourmet party, like at the legendary manga Dungeon Meshi. And then I got into the hobby, and I started running live sessions in 2017 when I was having a school society run in there. And that was when I started to be very involved in the hobby. I started to get in touch with people around Hong Kong. And after 2022, I moved to Australia. And then I started to get in touch with a group of people called SUTEC, which is basically the people who are running RPGs in the University of Sydney. And I started making animations in 2022 as well, because back then I was in a limbo. That means I started studying.
Okay. Do you play any other games apart from Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. So the second game I played was Rutama, which is written by a Japanese, and it is more like a natural fantasy RPG where you are going on journeys. And later, that RPG is improved in a game called Fabula Ultima, which I'm going to run next month. And apart from that, my major RPG is Cyberpunk Red, which I won as a community level for my society. And now I graduated. I actually passed the mantle to another girl who I introduced to the system to. And I also run Tales from the Loop. That's my preferred intro to RPG for most of the people I know, because it's simple and it's very easy to run. And we have a setting that is made around Hong Kong, where we are living in a very technically advanced society, and we have things like whales which can talk, and crabs which are very intelligent in the story. So it's actually our GM's obsession with toy dolls. He likes buying crab dolls and also whale dolls. So, and use them in the RPG session. So sometimes they put guns, and sometimes they put a cap in there. And he also did a lot of paper crafts. So we used to have things like 1942's Nice Name. Yeah, that's a game from Capcom. And also we have the Ace Combat 7's Falcon, and also the Kaishan's Savage Corvette, and also other Iron Brigade. So we have a lot of different crafts in one of the session. Fighting a Naughty Lloyd from D&D.
I would have asked this with Tales from the Loop, where do you play it? But you already answered it, because the original game is set in Sweden, and it's always interesting to hear if people set it in their own country or in Sweden.
Yeah, and Hong Kong has a very different geography back then and now. So in Hong Kong, actually, there is a nuclear accelerator in one of the tunnels, but it's a very small one. So we set the story around a school called Garden International School. The Garden actually is one of the most infamous bakery in Hong Kong. And they are infamous for one thing, like 1.3 kilogram lectin, and it's always hated. If you give somebody that can of biscuits in Lunar New Year, people are gonna kill you. Because they hated it, because it's so hard to clear one tin of it. That's why people hated it. And we make fun of it, because one of the players, back then I used to work above him, and one day when we were in the club, he gave me a tin of biscuits outside Lunar New Year holiday. That's why we have this funny get around the Garden International School.
Okay, can you maybe tell us something about your animation? So if I understand it right, it's in Cantonese?
Yeah, it's in Cantonese, but I usually put English subtitles and Chinese for people to view, and I'm having plans to make it into a more English-speaking version of it, so just to test whether the people are actually interested in my content. So my content revolves around a girl whose name is Albertine, who is trying to introduce others to play RPG. And Albertine is actually my D&D character who was in a isekai session. She's like Knight Templar from the Crusade era who tried to make a knighthood in the modern world. I was inspired by Joe Cat, that's for sure. And I was thinking if people are more interested in this kind of content in Cantonese, they may actually try to be more involved in RPG or maybe in content creation as well. So I start making animation and try my best to do the stuff that I want to do for a long time because I used to want to make animation as a kid, but now I really get the chance to do it as an indie scale. So I pick up the chance and do it. And I am focusing more on introducing people to the RPG side. So I'm doing intro to RPG at the moment. So more introduction to how to run RPGs in general, because I think people need to get start someone somewhere before I start to talk about those spicy stuff like the stories and also the kind of more volatile things like my own story and also some of my RPG shenanigans.
Okay, so let's have a look at the bigger picture. How's the gaming scene in Hong Kong organized? For example, are there gaming shops? Where do people play? Do you have conventions? Can you say something about this?
There are a few types. Usually school clubs, obviously. Another way is game cafes and also game shop. So game cafes and game shops are different. So game cafes are like sometimes the hero goes to those cafes in commercial buildings and they play TRPG in there. Like they may order food or a drink. Like a minimum entry is a drink. So they used to go to there and run TRPGs. Those places are usually more crowded. I went there once and it was horrible because on that day I was having an anxiety attack during one of the sessions. And for game shop, it depends because I tried once. They depends on their theming and also some are very dedicated for TRPGs. They have dedicated DMs and some of them run certification courses. And there are actually some other shops that may run guerrilla sessions, or maybe they have their own translated version of some Japanese RPGs or maybe other RPGs they like. So I know some shop actually also run their own events. And usually people organize them maybe from a shop level, or maybe they do it from Discord or Telegram server level, because in Hong Kong, Telegram is very popular. And also, I know somebody who made a TRPG bot known as HKTRPG for Discord and also for Telegram. And that is a very famous bot among the Chinese-speaking sphere. And the game I went into, and also some of my parties are Discord people, is very different because I usually run online because I live in Australia obviously now. And also, but back then I'm also a kind of, security reasons, I better run it online and to get used to the people until I can find a neutral ground that I feel safe to run in. I would like to try running in one of those shops if they don't require those pay DM training. Usually most shops runs by hours. They have an hour obligation that you have to pay for the hours you're playing there. And some shops may offer you terrains and also other stuff, but those kinds of stuff are kind of rare in Hong Kong because of storage. From a home level, I don't think most people can run it at home because it's so crowded and people will get noise complaints around the world because Hong Kong people likes to complain about everything. And some game shops are actually in industrial buildings, like in some kind of industrial building complex, because it's cheaper to rent there and also it's more spacious.
The games you can get in Hong Kong, are these written in Chinese or do you get them in English? What things are available there?
Usually people have an official translation alongside with their official version. For me, I usually order English books because that's kind of karma, I think. And also because I prefer to have it in the original language. But I know some DMs bought the books and then translate it and then give it to players. And that way is actually better for promotion because I haven't been engaging with much shopkeepers at the moment because the shopkeeper I know does not run TRPG that often. He was in Mong Kok. Mong Kok is actually like a highly concentrated place for working cafes and for that one TRPG. And also maybe in Lai Chi Kok and Kwun Tong, there may be more shops running those things. I actually knows one shop that I think is like Kim Il Yansen runs a lot of TRPG, and they are very famous in Hong Kong for running that. And I think there is one shop that is offering DM certificate course that is called An Kwai Kung Chok Sat, and that one is more professionally run. That means they have more tournaments and also more professional activities that they have to run. So it is a different style. I probably am not fit for those kinds of very professionally trained running a lot of or structured sessions because I usually improv. and also improv guy, and also I prefer to be more relaxed when with my hobbies. The only time that I'm not relaxed with my hobbies is when I'm joining RPG animation, and or maybe when I was doing more coding tasks, or maybe doing other more creative activities. Then that is the time that I will put my best into it. But for my games, I usually have a more laid back style, so I play more relaxed than others in Hong Kong. I know that in Hong Kong there is a new Discord group that is called Dungeon No Dragons emerging. I know Gordon from. Like they have a very structured approach to running TRPG. Like they have all the DM system that is run by volunteers, and they are still expanding, which they promote on some Hong Kong forums, and they usually runs D&D 5th edition or COC, and they are now currently expanding to Cyberpunk Red, and also I also run Tears of Vice on there, so they're getting very big, and the thing is about Discord group and Telegram group is after a while people will die down, and there will be only the core groups remaining, and the groups will be in fight. And that is the time that things get ugly. And people argue about rules and also argue about people. So that is not a pretty sight, I can tell you, because I got involved in one of the incidents that involved somebody harassing a girl and getting people tossed.
How's the contact to other Chinese-speaking communities outside Hong Kong?
Believe it or not, it is like a love-hate relationship. The Chinese nerds have a much higher output than Hong Kong nerds. So they translate more stuff, they do more article writing, they are also more committed to their hobbies than Hong Kong nerds, because Hong Kong nerds, they don't have much cultural outputs actually. A lot of people actually consume Chinese materials. We need to make some distinction here. So we have mainland Chinese nerds, that's the PRC nerds, and we have Hong Kong nerds, and we have Taiwan nerds, and we also have Malaysian nerds and also Singaporean nerds. And usually the most highly output ones are Taiwan nerds and also PRC nerds. So they usually produce much more materials. They also have a much more higher, better VTubing culture, and also they have more cultural output. They make subtitles for Critical Role. They make their own series. I know Hong Kong people are trying to do the same thing, but language barriers obviously, because Cantonese users are much lower than Cans than Mandarin speakers. Not saying they are not big, but they just happen to be a small and also fractured. RPG is a niche hobby in Hong Kong, very niche. And we have a lot of fractured groups, and we also have a lot of people who are not aware of those big discords, and also they are not aware of people around but they do watch people like maybe Hololive. They may run D&D together, maybe sometimes Liji Sanji. So Malaysian nerds so recently in Dungeons and Dragons, we have some Malaysian nerds coming in, and they usually have a more diverse language background, so they can speak Mandarin or they may speak Cantonese, or maybe they cannot speak either because they are not the official language of those countries. And sometimes they may be able to listen to Cantonese, but they may not be able to run in it. They may have to require to use Mandarin or English. So sometimes it's the other way around, that they may know Cantonese but not Mandarin. And also because of some geographic restrictions, because they have a lot of islands, so it's harder for them to gather. So from what I know, it's hard to find a party in places other than Kuala Lumpur. It's harder for them to have physical parties because the game shops may not promote RPGs in those places. Singapore is a different story. I don't know much about Singapore, but I've recently seen a video about murder mystery games in Singapore, and I know they also have RPGs in there. And they are much more smaller community. So, I mean, they are smaller in terms of geographical size. So they having a more tighter community because it's easier for them to commute to a game shop. It's the same actually in Hong Kong because it's very easy for people to commute in Hong Kong to a game shop. So it's like maybe at most 1 hour or something. So people say, hey, Mong Kok, let's meet. And then people around the world. So people around Hong Kong, they may be able to travel to the place like Mong Kok in an hour. So it's usually the place that people like to meet, and it's also easier to get out because the traffic is so good. Like they have very good railroads. Hong Kong railroad is the best in Hong Kong. Like they have lots of good rail lines connecting around the whole Hong Kong. So it's very easy for people to travel around by railroads to play RPGs. That's what I want to say about the Chinese-speaking nerds I know about. And also we have the expert nerds around the world like me. So those kind of nerds may have working community like maybe in the university that speaks Chinese, but the one that in my university has an issue. They only use WeChat. And it's very hard for me to know what they're doing. So I gave up on that one and I went to Zotac instead.
Okay, do you notice any differences in gaming between Australia and Hong Kong?
I think Australians use more lines and rails and also more safety tools when it comes to RPG. And I also think they are more easier to get supplies because I've seen people playing in local friendly game store. They have a small room that is for RPGs. And I also know Adventures also have RPG sessions like they run D&D, Pathfinder, and they have more organized plays than in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, organized plays is not a thing. I mean, they may have some organized plays, but they don't have the same tight structure as Adventures League or PDFS. So it is more likely to be smaller scene, more focused to certain group of player. And I know that promoting RPG is difficult. Actually, it's very difficult in Hong Kong. It's around the world as well. For me, I would usually use one-page rules just to get people hooked to the ideas of RPGs instead of focusing on the combat mechanics like counting bricks. That's my point because I think RPGs should be more accessible to others. I'm not necessarily means that D&D 5th edition is not a good RPG, but I mean them may be better alternatives for people who are new to RPGs who do not want to count bricks to get into it without much hassle. So I choose those systems over D&D 5th edition as an entry. Although it's a very good system for entry, I will also say, but depending on theming, I may use different system for different purposes. And for back then in my Hong Kong university, in the universities I studied in Hong Kong, and I used Tales from the Loop as the introduction system. And as for other people, I may use different RPGs depending on what they prefer. It has different results, so that's why I make videos that is more based on general ideas of RPG first. I used to make a series on Cyberpunk, but that one is actually pretty crappy. The drawing is not on par with what I'm doing now. And also, it's more vulgar in tone, and also I don't really like the pacing of that one that much. Like, it's too similar to Jokers edition. It's good if I'm doing that kind of introduction, but I think people who are not used to Cyberpunk may not be able to get the idea around Cyberpunk stories and also the gameplay of what I'm doing. Like, it's very hard to explain because it's not that difficult to explain actually. The issue is people may not understand the system condition of RPG, and it's very hard for them to make a video about it and introduce the concept in a very short video. So I think Joker is a genius for doing 2 to 3 minutes, introducing things in 2 to 3 minutes per episode. For me, I usually have a more flatter tone now to talk about the things that I want to talk about, but like very slowly. And also kind of like more introductory, like more informative. But I may consider doing something that is more akin to comedy skits and maybe more generalist. Maybe I will try story like popping forward style next video maybe. That's kind of like an afterthought, like because it's a very new concept to me. I've only been committing like the past year making videos, and also I've been filming things in color lately, so it actually makes the workflow much longer. So it depends on how I make stuff. It can be very tedious and also time consuming, although I'm trying to cut corners as best as I could, but there are only so many corners that you can cut, and ultimately your content still matters. Like aesthetics wise, it has to meet a minimum requirement, and even if you can get around that many corners, you still need to have very good content, and that is something that I'm not good at because I am not good at writing and flowering on my language. So my language is very flat and also very straightforward, and that means it's hard for me to make funny jokes because of my personalities and also the language barriers. Like because I'm not good with jokes, and also I'm very outdated with Hong Kong references. And the thing is, a lot of Hong Kong references are pretty vulgar and also obscure. So not likely that somebody around the world will know about the Hong Kong references. Maybe if I talk about Hong Kong movies, like the older ones, they may not be able to know what that is. Even though there are lots of popular ones like Hard Boiled and also Shining Shocker, those are more popular. Even Amelia Watson from Hololive reviewed one of the movies. Did watch along with some of the movies, but there is still a cultural barriers between people understanding Hong Kong movies and also different cultural references. Just like in Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong it's hard for people to understand fantasy creatures, they do not have that concept. And Like explaining what our Owlbear and Beholder is takes a lot of time, and it is very hard to do it. I usually just draw my stuff, and then I just simply put the paper mini and say, "Hey, this is a Beholder. Look at it." And I also draw my own characters. That's the most important part. I draw my own characters. I think you may be able to meet some very interesting people in your next interviews around Hong Kong because it is actually a new market. That's why I'm trying to do a lot of foundation work for the people to join the RPG community, and also because Hong Kong, due to political reasons, people are more likely to be fractured. So I want to make contents that make people feel happy and also to make them enjoy life a bit more than they are now because it's very hard already. That's what I can say. Apart from promoting my channel at Dungeon Master Chef, that's where I make all my animations work.
Finally, given the popularity of Call of Cthulhu throughout East Asia, let's have some insight from a COC player from Hong Kong.
Hello, my name is Lance, and I got into TRPG from a Taiwanese friend. We met online, and one day he said, "Hey, Lance, do you want to play COC?" And I was like, "Okay, sure. What is this about?" And he introduced me about COC, Call of Cthulhu. Like we start a one-person campaign, and yeah, that's how I got into TRPG. I started at COC first.
And which other games have you played since then?
I played first Call of Cthulhu and D&D 5e edition. I didn't have the chance to play 3R. Is it the third one? Because it is a bit difficult. And I've played something like one-page TRPG like The Witch is Dead. And the players are the familiar of the witch, and one day the witch is dead and we have to go to revenge and like restore her. And also I've played Cyberpunk 2020 and Cyberpunk Red. Also some tailor-made TRPG, like they write their own system and I just read it and I join the games. And also Mahou Shoujo. Mahou Shoujo is in Japanese and it literally means magical girl. And also Pokemon. Oh, I have played a lot too, I guess. Yeah. Technically, I think that's it.
Okay, so I'll start with this Japanese game you just mentioned. So how can you read that if it's written in Japanese?
Actually, the host, the GM, has a translated like rule books and also user menu, so we can like play the games without learning Japanese.
And in which language do you play it?
I most likely play games in Cantonese, sometimes in Mandarin. When I'm playing with Taiwanese, I'll speak Mandarin, and when I play with Hong Konger, I'll speak Cantonese. And actually, do you know that even if it is Mandarin, when Taiwanese speaking Mandarin and like mainland China speaking Mandarin, there is difference in their accent. Like the R, like 儿子, that means a son, S-O-N son. Taiwanese tend to not emphasize the R. Some of the region of mainland China will have a strong accent in the so they can like identify where you're from.
Okay, so let's go to Call of Cthulhu. When you play Call of Cthulhu, do you use published adventures or do you have your own stories?
Actually, COC is kind of interesting because first of all, I have played both published adventure and also the story that made from the Keepers. However, there is a campaign called The Shadow of Yoga. I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Yog-Sothoth.
Yes, these are just made-up names by H.P. Lovecraft that nobody knows how to pronounce.
So I've joined a campaign that the keeper using the book Shadows of Yog-Sothoth, but actually he added some side quests or side story and combined them into a whole campaign. We are like playing around 2 years, and the frequency of the campaign is like we played around once a week in that campaign, and we used 2 years to finish the whole campaign. But from what I have told from the others that have also played Shadows of Yog-Sothoth, we are playing not in the test channel, but in voice chat. But some of the players in the group have said that actually to finish the campaign of Shadows of Yog-Sothoth is like around 4, 5, or like 7 sections and it is finished. So you could think that that campaign with the side quest or like side stories, there's a lot of mixture and lots of extra stories in it. And own stories, I wouldn't call it own stories if we are talking about like the Japanese campaign one, because there is like forums that shares different kind of plot, and some of them or like half of them came from or written by Japanese, and there is even a saying that the difference from COC and COJ. So COC stands for, of course, Call of Cthulhu, but COJ, it is some kind mocking the genre, like Call of Japanese or Japan, something like that. The difference is COC is more sandbox, like you are free to roaming around, like you can go anywhere as you like. It is more like free to go anywhere. However, in COJ, it is most likely plot to be locked in a scenario, like in a room or at most a town, and you couldn't leave it. You leave it, either you get lost, you lost your card, or like you couldn't process. So mostly the keepers that running the plots that are written Japanese style, they wouldn't let you go out. But since the nature of the plot that written by Japanese, some of them are quite good actually. Some of the hateful speech is like, oh, the COJ is such a rubbish, blah, blah, blah. It's like fast food and no value at all. But I actually don't think so. Some of them is quite good. But I don't think there is a English translation of that plot. I don't think the COJ one has English translation, or I'm not aware of it. It usually translates to like traditional or simplified Chinese. There is a lot of them because it is usually short campaign. You could finish it in around 1 to 3 hours face to face. Even if it is a long campaign, you can finish in 2 days. Yeah, so in Hong Kong, because it is a fast-paced city, it is really fits to our habits because we tend to do something that could really fast consume. One thing that people doesn't like about COJ is some of the plot doesn't relate it to the setting of Cthulhu, the stories that written by H.P. Lovecraft. Like there are lots of ongoing, and suddenly, bam, it is like Nyarlathotep. Because of him, he is playing around, he is playing with humans, blah, blah, blah. But actually, there is a saying like, oh, it must be Nyarlathotep, like 70%, 80%, or 90%, it is his fault.
And these plots or these stories, where are they set? So if you take something from Japanese, are these stories set in Japan and you play them in Japan, or do you play them in a Hong Kong setting?
Actually, most of the plot we played on a Japan setting, but some keepers alter it into a Hong Kong setting. So it depends on the keeper you are playing with. And some plot doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you are in Japan. And it also doesn't matter if you are speaking Cantonese or speaking Mandarin or speaking English. Because after all, as I said, it is the nature of COJ to lock you into a tiny room. And for some convenient reasons, everyone could like communicate due to the special atmosphere or the circumstance in that room. Oh, and if you mention it, you have to send check, like, because it is unusual, but you find out this unusual stuff, so you're like shocked and have to do a send check roll.
And I guess it would be the same for things set in the USA, that some keepers adapt them and some don't?
Actually, for the USA one, they most likely take place based on the campaign. Most of them, like 99%, because especially when you are doing a campaign, there is a lot of setting and the background story in it. So you couldn't like, it is from Egypt, but I wanna set in Hong Kong. It doesn't work like this. But if it is a short campaign from the COC American style, I actually also don't usually see someone that have alternate it into Hong Kong, because people tend to say COC is more like original, like stick to the atmosphere from the horror, the mystery from H.P. Lovecraft. But when it comes to COJ, it's more like a light novel. Like you have adventure, you have to like battle with the gods, with the monster. And one of the characteristic or nature of COJ is they tend to have a lot of interaction or even romance with the NPC or your players, like players A, B, C, D, and they go to have relationship. I mean, in like the characters. And they'll say it is tete. Tete is actually Japanese and it means like shipping. Like CP is couple and ship is like they are a pair and they are together and they have like chit-chatting, lovey-dovey.
Yes, I've heard about shipping. I mean, it's a short form of relationship, and I think it comes from fan fiction and such things. But I'm not really into these hobbies. Anyway, so when you have these relationships in COJ, is it typical to have some like safety tools, or do they just play it without any protection?
It depends on the players. Like, actually, usually will play the romance with your KP because KP is controlling the NPC, and when you have relationship with NPC, then you are like most likely interacting with your keepers. And when you are talking about safe word, like there's a difference from you are having a relationship with someone to you are having sex. We don't usually go that deep. Actually, like dating simulator, you hold hands, you kiss, and that's it. But I know there's some of the plots that will have like far more deep than that. You usually brings your friends, and you both agree to like play like as a couples. I mean, in characters, play as a couples. Some of them have session 0, some of them don't. Some of them use X card system, some of them don't. So I think it depends on who you are playing with, after all, because players with players and players with keepers, so many combination and so many homebrews. I think it is not common to use X card in Hong Kong. Let me introduce X card. X card is the mechanism that if something shown or mentioned and you are not comfortable about it, like gore or like rape or like domestic violence, you can say X card, and the keepers or the host will know that you are not comfortable about it and will like skip it or like blur it, like one sentence, oh, it happens, and finish it and won't describe it. Yeah, and some of them will handle it in section 0. Like they will talk about like this campaign will include domestic violence or like have rape. So if you are not comfortable about this kind of topics, I think you should leave. Or like if you are ready, or when you are playing this section, if you feel uncomfortable, you can always tell us and pause the games and like regain your composure, then return. Recently, there is a trend called LARP. Live action role playing is really popular in Hong Kong because first of all, we all know that COC D&D, you have to like read the rules and create your own characters. But in LARP, live action role play game, you don't have to put much effort in it. Like they will provide you a HO, a hook. Like basically the staff has already provided you a scenario, your motivation, like you as a killer, you have to like hide, or you as a mother, you have to like protect your child. Those settings is already written. You don't have to like create your own characters, and you follow the instruction and also the scenario. There is also a host like GM. You basically follow their description and try to role play in it, but you don't have to pay a lot of effort to enjoy the game. I think it is popular amongst Hong Kong and mainland China. because there is some store is basically like promoting or like selling the service of playing LARP, and they will prepare the costume for you. So some of the LARP lovers really like to play LARP is because the costume. And actually it is a easy access to role play because like you don't have to read the rules, you just have to read the books of your HO, your character settings, and you are ready to go, and you just enjoy that like 5 to 7 hours. Because in LAR there is like finding the killers, or like if COC they are like solving the mysteries. There is a genre. Actually, it is kind of like Tete stuff. Like it is a love stories, and you have to role play and feel the emotion. You feel the interaction with the characters, and you basically doesn't need to find the killers, but you role playing like playing a drama. You are acting. This is LARP. Actually, it is more popular 1 to 2 years ago. I've heard that in mainland China, not as popular as usual right now, because like saturated in the market. I want to add that I don't really like LARP because if you don't have any time to invest on like the system, or like you are not really interested to write a character of your own, then LARP really suits you because you don't have to really use a lot of time to consider what character you want to be, what race, what occupation, like what backgrounds you have to pick or what skills you have to pick. But if you love open world, or like you want to like build your character from zero, then LARP doesn't really suit you. And one of the really main feature of LARP is re-rolling. You couldn't jump out of it. You have to follow the rail and you just keep on going. This is my opinion on LARP.
So thank you for listening to The World of RPGs. A special thanks goes out to the role players from Hong Kong who talked to me. The intro music was Battle of the Dragons by Thomas Muzio, and as always you can find links to the games and everything else in the show notes. As for recommendations, I've actually run out of other channels to recommend, so I'm just giving you the homework to find out which TTRPG was created closest to your current location. Please subscribe and review wherever you found this podcast. And for the next episode, this will be a long one. I'm estimating 3 parts at the moment, but it might even be more. We're returning to Europe, and this is a place where the first convention happened in 1978. The upcoming teaser is from a game that was first published in 1984 and displays Dungeons & Dragons as the main fantasy TTRPG of choice in that country for a couple of decades.
Du guckst rein, es ist so ein vor sich hin, also so eine zähflüssige Substanz da drin, die immer so blub, blub. Also es köchelt nicht irgendwie intensiv brodelnd, sondern es ist eher ab und zu so ein blub. Und mit irgend so einem blub siehst du so ein Käfer, der noch auf der Oberfläche schwimmt. Und du hast Spinnenbeine. Und du guckst noch ein bisschen länger hin und dann macht es wirklich so eine etwas größere Blase. So, man guckt so fasziniert drauf, weil diese Blase sich langsam bildet und dann mit so einem Blop aufgeht und dann taucht das Auge, das in der Blase drin war, wieder nach unten in die Flüssigkeit ab.
Gute Güte.
Das sieht aber lecker aus.
Ja, lecker soll es nicht sein, es soll nur wirken.
Gegen was?
Da sind nur die guten Sachen drin. Rehaugen, also eingelegte Rehaugen, Spinnenbeine, sehr, sehr gute Schwämmlinge, die ich im Wald gesammelt habe, Käfer und Wolfsklöten.
Hilf mir auf die Sprünge. Ich weiß gerade nicht, gegen was das helfen soll oder für was.
Ja, das ist ein sehr potentes Schmerzmittel, das da draus entsteht.